computer. All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All
Right.
right,
Yes.
excellent. It's 7:01. We have both of the speakers here, so I think we can just kind of get into it, y'all. First, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. My name is Andrew Steinberg. I'm on the steering committee of Progressive Newton. I want to thank both our speakers, panelists, as you will, Councilor Leary and Representative John Lawn, who are here taking time out of their busy schedules to talk to us. So thank you both. I also want to thank our partner organizations, Newton Indivisible and Indivisible Progressive Watertown for helping make this event happen. And finally, I want to just thank all of you all for being here during your busy Monday nights. Here was what we planned on the order of the night being. We were going to have first me asking questions for about 40 or so minutes. I promise I'm not just asking a long question for 40 minutes. The speakers will also speak for 2 minutes each. They are asked the same questions, and they have not seen the questions yet. And I will try to alternate who starts as to not give one an advantage or a disadvantage. However, after about 40 minutes at around 7:50, we will open things up to audience questions. So if there's a topic or an issue that you feel like we weren't able to address in 50 minutes, we will keep things open and obviously try to get out by 8 o'clock and be respectful of everyone's time. How that will work is people will put their questions in the chat and I will read them in order of submission. So, with those being the ground rules. And again, I'll be firm but fair about the time. I ask the speakers just to be respectful of that. I have a timer to my right here. Uh, my first question is pretty much an opening. Both of you, if you could just, I'm going to start with Representative Lon for context. Who are you? Why are you running? And if you were elected, what would your priorities be? Or anything else you'd want to share?
Well, thank you. And thank you for Progressive Mass for hosting this forum and for everyone who's joined the call, and including my opponent, Alison Leary. I think it's great to have these conversations, and I'm looking forward to tonight's forum and the back and forth with some questions that we are all concerned about. So I've been in the legislature now. I'm in my eighth term, and I am running to continue the work that I have started and so many more important issues that I have been working on. I'm working right now as chair of healthcare finance on the affordability of healthcare and be specifically right this session we are working on a primary care bill, and I've also been working on a pharmacy benefit manager bill. The As many people know in healthcare right now, having access to a primary care physician is a challenge. And so I was appointed to a primary care task force and then also a healthcare affordability board by the governor. So I've been working deeply on those issues. But I am running to continue that work. I grew up and live in this district my entire life. I live in the neighborhood I grew up in. I have a senior mom who's 91 years old, living on a fixed income, to children, five children in their 20s who are almost out of college, but looking at the incredible unaffordable housing crisis that we're dealing with. And I've done a lot of work in that area, and I hope to continue that work and working with my colleagues to help solve some of these really challenging issues that the face is facing. So I just am honored to be a part of the legislature and working on behalf of the district that I care deeply about and the people. And I do this job for one reason, which is to help people. And I've always kept that my mission since I've been elected. So I'm very grateful to have this forum tonight and look forward to having, as I said, a discussion on all these important issues.
Thank you, Representative Lon. Councilor Leary.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And also, I want to thank Progressive Indivisible Watertown and Indivisible Newton for organizing the event. So my name is Alison Leary, and I am a candidate for state representative in the 10th Middlesex district. I'm also a city councilor in Newton for the last 13 years and a native of Newton. And I've been living in Newton most of my life. I'm running because I care deeply about ensuring that our government serves and supports all residents. And I am increasingly concerned about how unaffordable our Commonwealth has become. So I've been thinking a lot about ways to reduce the cost of living while also improving our great quality of life, actually, here in the 10th Middlesex district. And my focus is on two key areas: increasing housing supply and changing how we allocate healthcare. So, healthcare has gotten very expensive here in Massachusetts. It exceeded $83 billion in 2024. And an economic analysis of the Medicare for All bill, which is a bill that I strongly support, estimates that the total healthcare spending could drop by almost 30% to generating roughly 34 million to 48, I'm sorry, billion, that's with the B, and 48 billion in savings the first year should we have implemented it. So I'm part of a growing constituency that wants our healthcare system to work for patients, not for profits. Additionally, it is essential that we increase our housing supply, especially multifamily units. And I think they should be near public transit and amenities where people are less car dependent. We simply need to make it easier to build and provide diverse housing options for everyone, and that includes substantial reforms to zoning. I'm also a strong advocate for the increased transparency at the State House. I think all residents deserve to know how their elected officials vote and what is discussed. So I fully support the State House audit. That was the audit that was approved by 72% of Massachusetts voters.
Counselor, if I may, apologies. We
Yes.
have gone a little over 2 minutes. We'll get ample opportunity to maybe talk about those issues later on, but I do want to make sure that we can get into those questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll end it there and we can talk more about it as we go along.
Mm.
Thank you very much.
And candidates moving forward, that was on me. I'll put up a 1 and a 2 if that's helpful to you. But I'll if we get past 2 by quite a bit, I'll be a little stricter. So thank you.
Okay.
My first question is for both of you, but starting with Councilor Leary about a very serious topic. I'd say that all of us on this call are incredibly concerned and scared about what's happening on the national level regarding immigration enforcement and ICE. Obviously, recent killings in Texas and Maine are on our minds and in our hearts. And so, as state representatives, how would you respond to this? And what would you prioritize at the state level to make sure that our neighbors, especially our immigrant neighbors, are safe and live lives of dignity?
Did you want me to start?
Yes, Counselor, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as a city councilor, I'm already involved in this issue. We've been working with the mayor's office to strengthen our welcoming law that we did in 2020. And we want to make sure that we're making our communities safe from ICE and limiting areas where they can go, giving people more information about where ICE might be, putting body cameras on our police officers, and communicating with our residents about any ICE activity. So we want to do strong laws that will limit any authority of ICE and limit the ability for our law enforcement officers to work with them in any way, except as maybe observation and following them as they if they were in our 10th Middlesex community. And I'm willing to listen to any other advocate who has ideas about how we should act, how we can strengthen and make sure our communities are safer. And that's what I would do as a state rep.
Thank you, Counselor. Representative?
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, and this is a topic that has been of great concern for all of us. Massachusetts should never be an extension of Donald Trump's deportation machine that he has created here. And we have acted with the PROTECT Act. I was very involved in helping drafting that legislation. The fear that ICE has inflicted on our immigrant families is just cruel. It's traumatizing and completely unacceptable. Public safety is also about public trust. And that's why I was very involved in helping write the PROTECT Act. We work closely with the Black and Latino Caucus. Chair Dan Cahill, I worked with, Myra, the ACLU Law Collaborative out of Chelsea, which is a group that we work very closely with on some of these immigrant issues, the Brazilian Working Center, and a lot of immigrant advocates and law enforcement to make sure that what we're doing is right. The PROTECT Act that we passed in the House just recently was built on that simple principle. Everyone in Massachusetts deserves due process, equal protection, and freedom from unlawful government overreach. It's just this PROTECT Act will keep our local law enforcement focused on preventing and solving crime and not carrying out this federal civil immigration enforcement that the Trump administration is forcing on our communities. The PROTECT Act will protect our schools, our hospitals, our courthouses, child care centers, houses of worship, so family can go can attend without fear and go to hospitals without fear of without fear of seeking medical attention and be able to worship in peace and pursue justice without fear. And that's what the PROTECT Act does. And we are now in a conference with the Senate to work out the differences between the two bills. And it also strengthens protections for survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking and other serious crimes that can so that we can safely cooperate with law enforcement. So these are the things that we're taking action on and that I've been deeply involved with, and I will keep fighting for our immigrant neighbors who are very vital, and especially in the Waltham district that I represent. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Representative Lon. All right, moving on to questions of fiscal responsibility and about taxation. I'm going to start with Representative Lon for the first one to answer this question. Massachusetts, like many states, is facing significant fiscal challenges. How would you help the Commonwealth navigate these challenges while maintaining essential services and investing in the future?
So I continue. I've filed a couple bills just for one example. I think we've got to close every corporate tax loophole and make sure that everyone's paying their fair share. I filed an amendment when an issue was brought to me several years ago that I passed through the House just before the pandemic, and I'm pushing again for, is a car sales corporate tax loophole where car companies can buy cars without paying a sales tax. They use those cars, depreciate their value, and then sell the cars to the public, who then the public then pays the sales tax. To me, this is another example of how fundamentally unfair corporations get treated. It's something I've been raising an issue with and has brought a big microscope to um, this issue here in Massachusetts. That generates about $186 million of missed sales taxes that we should be getting here in Massachusetts to a private corporation, which I just think is fundamentally unfair. So those are the kinds of issues I'm working on. I really believe that we must close issues like this where the corporations are walking away and getting away with unfair tax treatment to us, the citizens of Massachusetts. And we must close every one of those loopholes, and I continue to look for them and continue to fight for them.
Thank you, Representative. Councilor?
Thank you very much. I also believe that we should be going after those tax loopholes as well. I am in favor of that the very wealthy should pay more. I totally support the millionaire's tax. Um, I am not in favor of cutting any tax revenue. That I know that those are ballot questions that are coming up. We should keep it as it is. And we should look for other sources of funding with people that can afford it. And I pretty much I really agree with Progressive Masses, their bills that they're putting forward. And I think they make a lot of sense. But I think we have plenty of money here in Massachusetts. The Commonwealth, we're a rich state. The money needs to be spread around a little bit more. That's how I see it. Thank you.
I think just to clarify, that's been taken off the ballot.
Oh, thank you, Representative, and thank you,
Right, that
Councilor.
has, yes.
Yep, thank you both. Moving on to the next question, and I'm going to start with Councilor Leary. Housing
Yeah.
affordability is one of the biggest issues facing our region. How would you address the need for more affordable housing, both for low-income residents and for middle-income residents who are increasingly being priced out of our communities?
I think the biggest thing we need to do, Andrew, is to increase significantly our housing supply. both for market housing and for lower income housing. We can't give enough housing to people by trying to just make everything more affordable for people in the 80% AMI area. And I'm in favor of loosening, making it easier through our zoning rules. We have very restrictive zoning rules in many communities. I think we should allow housing on smaller lots. I think we should allow multifamily by right in zone for that. I worked very hard on the MBTA community law and also the Village Center Overlay District here in Newton as a city councilor. I was on the zoning and planning committee for about 10 years. We have made some progress with, for example, accessory dwelling units, or sometimes called granny flats. I think we should allow housing on some undersized lots. I think we have to be really focusing also on diverse housing choices and smaller units, which are by definition more affordable. So.
Thank you, Counselor. Representative?
Mhm.
I have been, since first I was elected to the city council in Watertown in 2006, a very pro-housing city councilor and legislator. I have worked when I was in the city council in Watertown, I worked with my fellow councils in my district specifically on the Pleasant Street corridor in Watertown, where we rezoned industrial areas and we built thousands of units. Here in Watertown, we were able to really capitalize on these factories that were laid dormant and off the tax rolls for many years, and we were able to convert them into apartment buildings that really were a really great tax base for the city. Did not, it was industrial areas. It wasn't an area where you would build single family homes. It was an area where we were hoping to get some good development that would contribute to our tax base in the market when housing. Those units helped our tax base in the town and also provided an incredible amount of housing. We need to keep doing that. At that time, being from Watertown, my life, there was a lot, my whole life, there was a lot of people against it. But it turned out to be a very great thing for the town. One of the things that I'm really working on now is we really need to work on, as Councilor Leary said, is what these affordable units that are coming in private developments are not affordable. We need more affordable housing. I work very closely and get funding from my housing authorities. And one of the issues I've been working on is when we have land, our state land and public land, especially in our housing authority, we need more 1 and 2 bedroom units. In public housing, that model works where people pay 30% of their income. We need to build more of that. I've been working, I just got funding in the state budget for both Watertown and Waltham's public housing. And I also one of the issues in public housing is where people are overhoused, where families, 2, 3 bedroom units where families were able to raise their children, the parents are now there. We need more 1 bedrooms for them to move in so that house can be freed up for another family. And so I've got a bunch of other housing stuff I'd love to talk about, but we could do
Thank you,
that.
Representative Lon.
Yep,
If you want to, you're actually the first person for the next question, and I could have cut it, but I do think it is a good continuation of that
sure.
conversation,
Sorry,
which
sorry about
is, and I also just want to add personally, thank you both for your robust answers, especially as a young person who would like to stay in his hometown of Newton. Whatever you can do and are doing to make housing more affordable, I personally appreciate it. I know a lot of folks on this call do as well.
that.
But moving on into the next question, which touches on a similar theme, beyond housing. So it can be healthcare, it can be energy, you can take it however you'd like. What policies would you pursue to address the broader affordability crisis facing Massachusetts residents? And Representative Lon, you can go first.
Sure. Andrew, I think, I was in a meeting today talking about healthcare, and when you realize the root of so many of our issues here in Massachusetts is housing. It all comes back to housing. We're losing young people because of housing. We can't keep people because of housing. Kids who come here, we're losing scientists, we're losing doctors. I sat with the head of Mass General. They have doctors who come and graduate medical school with debt and then unable to afford an apartment in Boston. They're unable to afford a home to buy. They have to subsidize them and their doctors. Can you imagine what the regular workforce who are making much less money or what they're struggling with? And I see that, and I really I feel bad for these young children, the kids in their 20s and 30s who don't are looking down this road of like owning a home is so far out of reach. In Watertown, I've led on that. In my community, especially with the MBTA communities law, we were required by law for 1,700 units. We doubled that. That's what my community did. Watertown has stepped up and really done an incredible job of building housing, but we need all these other communities to do that. And so I have led on that. I will continue to lead on housing. We must do everything we can to relax zoning laws, and I support continuing those efforts. And everything, though, Andrew, it comes back to housing at some point, and the unaffordable housing is going to be the thing that this state must figure out, or all the other challenges are going to continue to be there.
Thank you, Representative. Councilor?
Thank you very much. So first of all, I completely agree with everything Representative Long has just said on housing. It is a huge problem. We're losing, especially young families. Newton, we have all these beautiful new schools. Young families can't afford to live here. But it's not just housing. It's also medical care. And I was talking about how much we pay for medical care here in Massachusetts. It exceeded like 83 billion dollars. And it's really doing great damage to family budgets and to city and town budgets. The city of Newton, we had trouble even with an extra $17 million that we added to our school budget. We still had to make cuts because healthcare took up half of that. We're paying something like $87 million in healthcare. So that's why I'm looking at a different model. If we adopted the Medicare for All bill, Newton would save something like $36 million in the first year. So okay, healthcare, and then additionally, I want to say utilities and daycare need to be dealt with too. And my idea with utilities is not to cut mass save, is to stop overbuilding gas methane pipelines. Okay, I'll end there, but there's a lot more to say about it.
Yeah, well, you have 30 more seconds. When I put up a finger, it's just 1 minute. I apologize
Oh,
for the
okay. I
confusion. You can
wasn't
use
sure
it.
whether you were waving me
Yep.
up. What I
Yep.
was going to, well, give me that 30 seconds. Because of the gas system enhancement plan or project that was enacted in 2014, we're overbuilding methane gas pipelines that we're not expecting to be used in the next 25 years. It's literally like another big dig. It's costing ratepayers billions of dollars. We need to figure out how to repair versus replace and to have a plan to work with the utilities to transition off methane gas and onto non-fossil fuel like electrification and geothermal and so on. Okay.
Thank you, Counselor.
You're
And
welcome.
that's actually a great transition into my next question. It's almost like you know where I'm going with this, both of you. My next question is about the environment. So, a lot of conversation around the environment and environmental policy pits affordability, pits economic vitality against sustainability. Some people reject this notion. And so, my question is, what should Massachusetts do to address climate change without sacrificing affordability and economic vitality?
And who's starting with that one,
Oh,
Andrew?
that'll be you, counselor. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll just continue with what I was saying before, the immense cost of our gas infrastructure. That along with, we're also working on electrification too. So it's almost like we're doing these two expensive things at the same time. So we need to transition off methane gas and start repairing gas lines as needed and transitioning off. And here in Newton, we have started to work with the utility, but we need a lot more authority from the state. And that's one of the things that we're working on. I don't think that I think, in fact, getting off fossil fuels, being more efficient, having more efficient homes and energy actually costs less in the long run. I don't think there's any direct conflict between affordability and meeting our climate goals. I think they work together.
Thank you, Counselor. Representative?
Great. This is the challenge that we're dealing with, right? We want to stay on our climate goals, but we're also have to deal with the balance of we've got seniors like my mom, who are 91 years old, who just can't afford their electric and utility bills. That's where climate change can be a health equity issue, right? An environmental justice issue. And as the Commonwealth's goals of decarbonization and zero emissions and sustainability, we should never pit them against affordability needs. We must figure out how to address both of them. And, people just who can't afford them and their heating bills, we need to figure out how to balance that. That's the challenge. And the Trump administration has cut so much from the progress we were making on offshore wind and other things. And so I am also, doing all I can, whether on the environment with working with Charles River dams and supporting removing of the Charles River dams. And I've done a lot around trying to, funding parks and Spears Park in Newton, the things that we can do at the local level. Nonantum, what Alison Leary represents, it's got 53 less shade canopy than any other area of Newton.
Mhm.
I got $50,000 in the state budget last year just to plant trees in the Nonantum neighborhood of Newton that I represent. I've worked with all the schools in Watertown that I represent, and we've built new schools. They're all net zero. We're opening a new net zero high school at Watertown High School, and next month it will be the first net zero high school in the entire United States that will give back more energy to the grid than take. Those are the things I've been working on. And around the environment and trying to keep, but in terms of affordability, we really need to balance that, our long-term goals with having our seniors and others being able to afford and pay their bills.
All right. Thank you both for those really robust answers. My next question is for Representative Long going first, but obviously for both. This is about the role of an individual member of the House in conversation with leadership, especially. So, what is your assessment of current House leadership, and under what circumstances would you agree or disagree with them publicly or privately? Let me clarify, actually, not agree with them. Under what circumstances would you disagree with them publicly or privately? And what's your assessment?
Well, I have over the years, and for example, I was the chair of election laws during the pandemic. I wrote and enshrined as the House Chair of the Votes Act, along with Senator Cindy Cream in the Senate. And I was a big proponent of same-day voter registration. It's been voted on a few times now in the State House. It's gone down. I differed from leadership on that. I believe in really doing everything we can to expand voter rights. I believe anyone who goes to our polls should be allowed to vote, especially people who are moving from apartment to apartment. And I made that very clear. I filed the bill. I stood by it. And unfortunately, it was not passed. I know it's a ballot question this term, and I hope that it does pass. I believe everybody should have the ability to vote, especially people who are moving or transient. And if they can prove that they live at an address, we should make sure that they have their right to vote. And that's something I'm very passionate about. And I know it's a ballot question now. It's been voted down 3 times in the State House, but I do believe we will get it here in Massachusetts at some point soon. And it's a position I took different from leadership.
Counselor?
Okay, so you're asking about how do I see the role of the rank and file and in terms of interacting with leadership.
Mhm.
Well, of course, working with a body of 24 city councilors, which I know is much less than 160 state reps, has still been challenging. And I always try and find areas of agreement. And even people that I agree with most of the time, I never agree with them all the time. So um, I look to keep to what my values and what's important to me, and also I listen to my constituents in terms of if there's a vote they're concerned about, an issue they're concerned about, I want them to talk to me about that because that would inform my decision. But I certainly wouldn't just agree I don't want to be pressured into something that I'm not comfortable with. And I'm not going to change my core values to please anyone in leadership. Um, and I'm also kind of critical of the stipend issue. And I feel that's a way of being able to sort of keep people in line because, of course, the Senate president and the speaker decide who gets to be chairs of committee and co-chairs and things like that. And they come with a pretty significant increase in pay. Um, so that's my answer.
Thank you. And not to be redundant, I do thematically clump these questions together. So it's very natural, Councilor Leary, that the next question is about that exact topic, transparency and accountability. Where do you stand on the state audit? So that's one of the issues. And two, on the non-binding initiative for stipend reform.
Well, I support both of those things. I am an advocate for change in terms of how we run the state house and the processes that are there. Um, so I am in favor of the audit that 72% of the voters approved of, not the eviscerated version that passed recently in the House in the transparency bill. Um, I want to be clear on that. Um, I think I don't know what's the concern is. I've heard that there are, some kind of legal issues involved, but I don't think we the state of representatives, the general court should be concerned about not being completely open and transparent with their voters, the people that elect them. And I support more transparency. I support that we should be subject to open meeting law, not exempted from it. Every voter deserves to know how their elected official voted and also the process for it as well, how the decisions were made, what the discussions were like. I'd like to see a lot more of that. This is what we do at the local level. And I think open and transparency that's democracy.
Thank you, Representative Mon.
Great, thank you. And I know this is an issue. First of all, I totally agree that we should be audited. Um, there is, I think that the audit question became a matter of whether it's constitutional or not, and that's why it ended up in front of the SJC. And before that, even the House had voted earlier in the year, I think in February, we said to the auditor, we are happy to have an audit and we will fund the audit and we will allow you to pick an independent auditor. And she refused that. It then went to the SJC. The SJC said to the auditor and to the attorneys, you just need to define the scope of the audit. She defined four areas of the audit that she wanted. And then the bill that we passed gave her those four requests that she had, and then it was not enough again. So, it just seems like it's got very political. The SJC made their ruling, and she requested records going back 2021, 22, 23, 24, a couple of copies of all audits, which we are already audited. And it gets into just the separation of powers and what branch of the government audits the other. And I think at this point, I think I'd just really like to see the audit done and give, full authority, but it's going down as a constitutional issue, and it just kind of keeps going on. And we just hopefully that this will just kind of come to some resolution soon, because the voters support it. I think the ballot question doesn't get into the constitutionality of the audit, and that's can be something that is a challenge with ballot questions, because it doesn't. It just comes up, any advocacy group can come up with a ballot question, and it does not get into the very specifics of what the audit is and is it constitutional or not. It just gives very broad language. So I think that's why we ended up with this in front of the SJC. But again, we gave the auditor everything that she requested in front of the SJC.
Yep. Thank you, Representative. Good thing is these answers are very tight, so we can add some of our secondary questions we had in the wings. But also, folks, we will be opening it up to questions. I'm hoping by 7:50, maybe even a few minutes before then. So I did see there was a question in the chat. Thank you for doing that. If you want to think about what questions you might want to ask, now would probably be a good time to get those gears turning. But I still have two more questions. I think, no, three more questions to ask. So we will proceed. So this one will be, I believe, Councilor Leary, you're going first.
Okay.
Hopefully I didn't make a mistake there. Um, what is your view on the possible effort to limit campaign financing through state chartering regulations? And for context, a lot of states are thinking in a post-Citizens United world that there are opportunities for states to regulate how corporations are incorporated as like a way around the Citizens United decision. And campaign finance is a very big issue that underlies a lot of other issues in our democracy and in our society. So are you familiar with this idea? Has this come up? And where would you stand on visiting that novel issue?
Well, I'm not as familiar with that specific novel issue, but I am very familiar with the Citizens United decision, and the amount of money that gets spent on in elections is very concerning to me. PAC money and the amount of money that it costs to run an election. So I would like to see Citizens United overturned. I'd like to see some public funding for elections as well. I'd like to make it a little more fair for people to be able to run for office without having a billionaire or millionaire, multimillionaire put money into his own election, such as the one with the Republican opponent to our current governor. There should be a limit on the amount of money that you could put into your own campaign. And there should be a limit, I think, a limit of money. I could dive into this. This is an issue that I'm very concerned about. I think money in politics is corrupting and it undermines our democracy, and we need change. And I would very much like to work more on that, and that would be a priority for me as a state representative.
Thank you, Councilor. Representative?
I totally agree. I think there's so many, the Citizen United decision. I think we really any kind of dark money in politics when you don't know where the money's come from is a problem. As long as there's transparency, and I even see that that's one of the issues with the ballot questions, right? We get some people from outside the state who come in and fund a ballot question that can lean towards a specific advocacy group of theirs. And that's no way to run government when other outside groups are coming in and funding ballot questions from outside our state that can benefit a certain industry or a certain issue, and that's always a problem. So the more transparency we have on that, I think I see that in some of these advocacy groups. I know Allison's with Act on Mass is a big proponent. You can't find anyone who funds Act on Mass. I don't any you can't fund. I sent an email asked one time who donates to your to Act on Mass, and they said we can't tell you. And I think that's a challenge, and that's something where my opponent gets a lot of her instructions from, and the things like the stipends and other things. But I really don't see any transparency with Act on Mass. Who donates to them? Where is that listed? It's not. We need to know where all this money is coming from and who's donating to them.
I'm sure that we'll have a robust conversation in our closings, which is in two questions. But second to last question is, and apologies, I think I doubled up on you, Counselor. So the
No worries.
last two questions, I'll invite Representative Lon to go first.
Okay.
So this one's about education policy. So what are your priorities on education policy, such as special education, the state's recent literacy bill, vocational and technical education, and funding for public schools, any and all of the above?
Right. Well, special education, we're seeing every city and town really struggling with special ed funding. And the formulas we have right now to fund education need to be really looked at, and they are actually starting to really look at the formulas because they're not fair. And certain communities aren't getting, especially our poorer communities, are not getting the funding because, as we know, most of our funding that comes from property taxes. So if you're in a low-income community, those towns are really and cities are really struggling. The Fair Share Amendment has been really a great resource to supplement some of this funding that's been lost. I recently just got $200,000 to the city of Newton for special ed funding and other positions to be added back into the Newton Public Schools that because of the city's finances have been really challenged. And I've done that for my other communities as well because the special ed funding, special ed costs have gotten very, very high. We do know, as I said, need to look at the formulas and how we disperse money. But again, the Fair Share Amendment has been very helpful in that area, but we continue to need to examine how we fund our public schools. And we saw recently with the Newton teacher strike, right? When you can only tax cities and towns at 2.5%. It's very hard to live outside those means, and that's when you get really in real trouble. And that's where fiscal responsibility is hard because we need to value our teachers, but if we're going to pay people more, we need to find out different revenue sources, and that's with new growth, that's with good development, and that's where we have to just really focus on other ways and how we can fund our public schools because we're really falling behind. And we're seeing a real decline in students, and we're going to lose funding for that for less students. So, per pupil, we need to really come to the table and figure out how we can better fund our schools, how we can better fund our teachers' salaries, who deserve to be paid a living wage, and so they can live and near their schools and in their communities where they want to teach. And that's just become too unaffordable. And we saw that recently with the Newton teacher strike.
Thank you, Representative. Going on to my last formal question to
Do you
close.
want me to
Oh,
answer
oh,
that
oh, I'm so
question?
sorry. I was getting ahead of myself. Of course, Counselor, please.
Okay. So I agree that an excellent public school education should not depend on your zip code. And I'm grateful for some of the things that we've been doing, like the Fair Share Amendment, and a millionaire's tax, where we can increase revenue. But really, the elephant, could someone mute, please? I'll wait till they mute. Mark Sedaris, could you please mute? Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll just begin again. That happens all the time in our Zoom meetings. Okay.
Won't
Um,
penalize you for time.
okay. But what I was going to say, the elephant in the room, really, is healthcare costs. Um, So the reason why Newton is having, and many other communities are having trouble paying for our schools is because our healthcare costs are gone through the roof. And I'm sorry, but the Committee on Joint Care Healthcare Financing has no success with keeping healthcare costs at the benchmark of 33.6%. And it's not just them. There's a lot of complicated factors, of course, but nothing's working. Nothing is working to rein in healthcare costs. Newton spent something like $59 million on healthcare. And if we had a single payer Medicare for all model, the estimate is we'd save $36 million. Boy, we could do a lot with that $36 million for our schools, among other things, and so could every other community in the Commonwealth who is crumbling under the pressure and crushing costs of our healthcare system. So that's one of the main things that I would look to. And obviously that's not going to happen overnight. So we do need to look at other shorter term alternatives for funding our schools. And that's going to be a lot of different ideas, a lot of different models. I think we do need to increase, again, look to the very wealthiest of us to spread some more money around to cities and towns and relook at how we allocate our education funding at the state.
Thank you, Counselor, and apologies for almost missing you. Moving on into the last formal question. This is the closing. What would you like people to know as they go away from this Zoom call? Why should people vote for you? And Representative Lon, I invite you to answer first.
Thank you, Andrew. Again, thank you everyone for being here and contributing and caring. As I said in the opening, I do this job and I'm honored to do this job because I care about people. I care about my communities that I represent. I care about making this world a better place. And I know right now the world seems very heavy. This week in Newton, we had the Festa, and I know Allison, many of us were at it. It really just made you feel better to be around people who care about their community, and helping each other. And that is what at the core of what we do. You know, we all do this to try to help make the world a better place in our communities. And I think where we are in a time of this world, in a job like this, you get the ability to help people. You get to help people in their darkest moments. It's not all about passing laws. It's not about stopping laws. It's about helping people. And we get calls every day of just, people trying to help people, families that are going through hard times, whether it's housing or addiction or getting a bed in a mental health facility. Those are the reasons I do this job, is to help people. And I love the job. I never wanted to run for anything else. This is what makes me happy. There's no better feeling than helping people, and I just want to continue that work. I'm working, very diligently with my colleagues and all the stakeholders in healthcare to do all we can to bring down healthcare costs. And I think the Medicare for All thing is absolutely something where we're marching towards. It's something that we got to continue to work on. Just last week, I reported out the bill for the first time in decades out of the Healthcare Finance Committee as a commission to set up a study to see if Massachusetts could do this and do it alone. And it's something that I've spent an awful lot of time on. And I believe everything should be on the table in terms of healthcare costs. I think I could talk about Medicare for all for hours. So I think that maybe we could do a separate forum on that. But I think everything we need to do is that to lower costs, whether it's utilities, housing, and healthcare. I really feel like we're in a strong place of making progress, and I just really want to continue this work. And I humbly ask for your vote and your support, and I look forward to the rest of the campaign and having these discussions. So thank you, everyone, for caring and for being here tonight.
Thank you, Representative and Counselor. I let Representative Long go to about 2:30, so I also will let you go to 2:30 for your final statements.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Just once more, I'm going to say my name is Alison Leary, and I am a candidate for state representative in the 10th Middlesex, and I am asking for your vote on or before September 1st. And the reason why I think I deserve your vote is because I want to make some significant changes. I am very focused on healthcare, both as improving quality of life and also for significantly reducing costs. I want to see more transparency at the general court. If you Google the who is the most opaque um, legislative body in the country, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts comes up first. We exempt all three, the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive, from our open meeting law, although the legislative body did have the good idea to make sure that the executive has to be accountable to open meeting law, but not themselves. Um, I want to see stipend reform. I want to see term limits on leadership. Um, I want to see more real, some real focus on housing and how we can increase it. I have been endorsed by Abundant Housing, so I would be working closely with them on what policies we should prioritize to get to that. Um, I also think I had something to do with this Medicare for All bill moving forward after many, many years of it going nowhere. And I will not only want to do these things, but I will actually vote the way to do these things. I will be voting to make sure that these go through. Um, and I will not, I'm not, as I said before, I'm going to stick with my values. Though I understand there's compromise, there's time for it when you have to get a half a loaf. I am looking for the full loaf, and I am looking for my constituents here in the 10th Middlesex to guide me towards that. I will be listening to them, not to lobbyists, and not to the speaker. So thank you very much. I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Counselor. So that concludes the formal structured questions for the evening. And so I invite folks to put their questions in the chat, still acknowledging we're going to try to get out by 8 p.m. I did see two questions, and so a slight amendment to the structure of the conversation. I'm going to ask each candidate to limit their response to like 1 minute instead of 2 minutes. So maybe we can get to more questions that way while still having enough time to answer. So I'm just going to start with the first question I see, which comes from Alana. Why do we still have a 327G, although I believe 287G is probably the right terminology, agreement with ICE? And as a state rep, would you work to end it? Given that Representative Lon spoke at the end first, I will invite Councilor Leary to start with this question.
The 287G agreement, I am not specifically familiar with, but I will tell you that I don't think we should be having any agreements with ICE. And as a state representative, I would be a strong advocate for that. I want to ban ICE. They shouldn't be in Massachusetts at all, or any of our cities or towns, or any of our, shouldn't be in our country. They're just they just spread fear, and they're actually, I'll say it, they murder people. And I'm so upset about what ICE has done and the most recent killings. So I will do everything in my power to ensure that they cannot get into Massachusetts, and that we limit whatever they can do if they are in here. Those are just my emotional feelings about it. And I need to listen to more people about specifically what legal ways we can do it and be successful.
Thank you, Counselor. Representative?
I believe right now there's only one 287G agreement that is still in existence in Massachusetts. There's been no new 287G agreements, and that's only with the Department of Corrections. And actually, I had a lot of conversations with the Black and Latino caucus, um, and they actually want to keep the 287G agreement because if you're in the Department of Correction custody, Massachusetts, you get full access to legal custody, multilingual services, transportation, tablets. Because Massachusetts, once you're in our system, you're afforded these protections, and they wanted them, and they were afraid if they did not have these agreements, you could be shipped out to another state across the country and not have these protections. So these protections were very important to the Black and Latino community, and the Black and Latino caucus was very vocal about that. So it's when if ICE is looking to detain people, it just opens up them to do whatever they want if this 287G agreement isn't in place. So these are kind of the people that are kind of the worst of the worst, who have maybe killed somebody, and some of those that are being deported, who have committed serious, serious crimes. So there is only one in place, and I believe it's in Plymouth County. There it is.
Thank you, Representative. Will try to get to the other questions as well, but thank you for your answer. I see two more questions. I think we can get to both of them and then conclude. So the next question is from Nadine. Each of you have spoken about what you have done in your own community, RE housing, and that is wonderful. How can you specifically support Waltham and our need for housing? What are your thoughts about Waltham Mayor McCarthy's recent veto of a Waltham City Council approved mixed-use overlay district at the Bay Colony Office Park? I will, Representative Lon, you can go first.
That is not part of my district. The part of my district in Waltham, that was a city council initiative. It was up, I believe, on the north side by Market Basket, and I have not fully delved into the details of that specific proposal. I do know that Waltham has done quite a bit of housing. I know there is frustration of doing more. And I've worked with a housing authority and just got, again, more money to help try to build more public housing, as that's what we need. And I know that the mayor obviously had some concerns, but I have not talked to her or any city councils yet about it, and it is not in my district. So it has not been something that I've been engaged on.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. Counselor?
Yes, so I have heard about it, and I was upset to hear that Mayor McCarthy did veto it, and I'm hoping that the city councilors will override her veto. My understanding is that that she was concerned that there wasn't enough parking there. And perhaps there were other issues too that I'm is not as familiar with, whether it's at public transit or bike lanes or things like that. But I, though I do think Waltham has made some good strides on housing, again, I would go back to, zoning issues. It, we need to, in order to build more multifamily supply. I also would disconnect the parking from the unit as well to reduce the cost for the unit. And if people want or choose to have a car or say they're car light, maybe they don't drive. They're not paying the cost of the parking. Um, so I the other things that I would like to see with some of these housing units also, I want to make sure that it is best if people have housing where there are amenities, where they don't have to rely on single-use vehicles, where they can get to the grocery store. So it depends on the specific project, but I would definitely dive into that. But those are my basically values about it.
Thank you, Counselor. If we can get this last question and we can wrap up before 8, I'd be very proud of us. So, the last question I missed in the chat, Deborah's, how will you engage your constituents to get their voices for pieces of legislation and keep them up to date on the goings on in the State House? And whoever was the person who wasn't the first person last time, please go. Thank you.
Was
Counselor,
that me?
I believe it was you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, I I would be reaching out and being in district and attending events. And actually, I did sign on to the Act on Mass pledge, what which is to host at least two in-person constituent town halls per year in your district, which I think is a very low bar. But I think it's very important to be attending events, showing up in your district, listening to your voters, responding to their calls, keeping office hours, inviting them in to offices at the State House as well. I mean, this day and age, there's so many ways to stay in communication with people, and I learn something new every day. And my constituents here in Newton as a city councilor have been incredibly helpful for me to learn more and to really guide my decisions so we can make the best policies that we can. So that's always how I've looked at when in my decision-making process. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor and Representative.
Yeah, always one of the challenges in the district that of the 10th Middlesex, there's three precincts in Newton, four in Watertown, and six in Waltham. Very different communities, different neighborhoods that kind of span different. The Waltham goes from Bentley down to Moody Street and around. We certainly get a lot of email, a lot of reach out from to my office. And engaged in certain issues. Not everyone's engaged in certain issues. As you know, there's probably 8 to 10,000 bills filed each session. So it's kind of really hard to just update everybody on what bills. It's more that people reach out about what is important to them. I meet constantly. I mean, just Alison, for example, on mass care. I mean, how many times have we met over the last, year, 2 years on Medicare for All? I've hosted her in my office at the State House. I've hosted mass care with her. I've hosted mass care by themselves. I probably had 10 meetings just on that one bill on Medicare for All. So that's the kind of stuff when people are engaged in an issue, you try to meet with them and understand the issue, find out the challenges, find out the benefits, and weigh how you can maybe move a bill forward. But the other thing is you always got to make sure that there's support for it, and that's part of working with your fellow legislators and getting them up to speed on a bill that may be important to constituents. So that's the outreach. You try to just meet with people wherever they are. I'll meet with people anywhere, coffees, breakfast shops. One thing, especially,
Representative,
yep,
it would be unfair if I let you go
sure,
beyond
no, totally
1:15,
understand.
1:30, and it is 8 o'clock.
Yep,
But
no
thank
problem.
you both so much for attending this great conversation. I'm sure the campaigns, I guess I'm volunteering them. If you have any questions that come up, I'm sure you can reach out to them. I want to thank Newton Indivisible and Indivisible Progressive Watertown for helping create this event. You might hear messages from us on actions and events we're doing in the future. We really hope that you join us. And for all the people here, it's really great to be in community with people who care. So I'll leave you on that, whether you agree or disagree. It was great to share this experience with all of you. So thank you
It was
and
great.
wishing you a
Thank you
wonderful
very
night.
much. Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andrew. Bye-bye.